Okay, let's do it again. I'm so happy that you're here.
Welcome to the Destination Workplace Show, a podcast that inspires CEOs, real estate, workplace, and HR leaders to create meaningful and purposeful employee experiences inside and outside of the office. My name is Nelly Hyatt, and I'm a work futurist. And I'm sitting down with leaders to talk about the future of the workplace, their vision and ambition for the next generation of employees, and how to have an impact.
You've been such a big source of knowledge for people in our industry, such a big support for the workplace industry. So I'm really happy that I get to share your wisdom with the world.
Well, thank you. Thank you, Nelly, for having me. And yes, this is one of those opportunities. I feel that I live in the IT world, but I do have a WPR background. And I'm with Palo Alto Networks. I'm Director of IT Video Collaboration, responsible for global executive event and AV operations support, and all of the infrastructure build out pertaining to anything and everything video collaboration centric.
And it's such a big part of the conversation. It has been already for the past decade. Our offices were all equipped with IT AV equipment in our meeting rooms, at the front desk. Some companies had an app for their employees where they were engaging with the workplace. But somehow with the pandemic, it just opened the doors to first give a real room for technology to have a say, and also for people like you who have the dual background of facilities, workplaces, and technology, to give us an idea of like what can the future look like, what can technology deliver to create that ambitious hybrid idea that we have. What can you tell us a little bit?
Well, where do we start? What interesting times we are living in. And it took a pandemic literally to show the world that the technology that we've had in front of us for quite some time is actually operationally mature enough.
Yeah.
And it literally required the pandemic to put it front and center. And to your point, technology is taking a front row seat this time around, but it can't solve this puzzle by itself. And this is where the partnership and synergy with the workplace teams, the facility organizations really needs to come into play.
Yeah.
And I think, speaking on behalf of Palo Alto Networks, we were fortunate enough to hit the ground running. We had the right key components in place for day one when we were told mandatory work from home. And to this day, we've been able to manage, let alone grow, and exceed expectations with the tool sets that we have already. And now the challenge is, how do we define this post-COVID, and what is our environment going to comprise of? There is no playbook, and my company, and kudos to the leadership, had key insight early on to start this flex work coalition with certain partners, strategic partners, to try to help define this. And of course, it's not a one-size-fits-all, as you might have seen, but I'm just so proud and the fact that I'm part of this coalition and helping define what may ultimately become the standard for the next decade or two.
I was reading an article from The Economist a few days ago where they were talking about the fact that we thought going into the pandemic and working from home was abrupt and violent, but actually like trying to get people back into a post-normal, a post-pandemic world seems to be a lot more complex than that first abrupt movement we had to take because of all those questions. But somehow I think I'm very optimistic because first there's been a lot of growth within all of us, individuals and organization, a lot of self-awareness, a lot of awareness of others. Oh, now we all feel what it was like to be on videos. Now we all feel like what it is to not be part of some conversation. Now we feel the burden of not having written docs on what has been said in the conversation. We're realizing that we all cope differently with information. Some people are good in a live meeting to share their feedback. Some people process the information and then they would like to have time to then give a feedback later on. Some people need to have questions beforehand to really anticipate what is going to be asked. We were really not inclusive to that diversity before. Everything needed to happen on the spot in a meeting. somehow we just broke the walls, not only of the offices, but our meeting rooms, of the way we work, and realized that there's a range of things we can implement. But at the heart, it's trust, it's vulnerability, it's respect, it's dignity, it's active listening, it's compassion. If we educate human beings to have these essential elements as part of the way they interact with others, anything can be built on top of it. And one element of technology that emerged during COVID was this app where you could have like a conversation on audio. It was just audio, and somehow, like Clubhouse, somehow we loved it. Like, oh, it's interesting. When I'm not on video, I'm a different person. Maybe I share more of myself. Maybe I can walk. I don't need to be seated. The fact that I'm seated, maybe my mind cannot really wander. Somehow we all like experiment with new technology. This is going to like transgress into the workplace.
Absolutely. And I share your optimism. I do believe that this again is going to be defining as far as the future generations. And in terms of these solutions that are coming out, I think we're going to have a melding of many different flavors that will help accommodate for the certain challenges that we're trying to achieve for. I, in particular, am focused on making sure that we have equal real estate, regardless if you are remote virtually or on-prem. And again, this is one of those requirements for both real estate teams and IT organizations to really heavily partner to help define how we do that. And from a traditional sense, everyone's used to the pre-pandemic flavors of choice, standard conference room designs, furniture, and how the industries are quite separate, right? Between my places team responsible for the procurement designs of that space, which typically resolve around the furnishing. Now, the concepts are, how do we evolve this with the technology in mind, front and center, or being the key factor to allow for that equal real estate and giving digital equity to those that need it.
Exactly.
And in terms of the collaboration outside of the conference space, how do we maintain that? And as these tools that you've just touched on, these are things that I'm really looking forward to.
It's gonna be a new world. Like, I think we've have enough experience on how to design a physical workplace. We now like jumping right like head first into what is a digital workplace. And again, like they will be translated into the physical world, but people are gonna record themselves on a podcast for their team because we don't need a meeting. We just need to listen to what I'm gonna say. I need a studio in my office to record that podcast.
Right.
People are gonna be walking around because it's just audio. How do we create paths for that wandering within our offices? And so many more medias that I don't even think about that are gonna be part of your world building the digital workplace and what needs to happen in the physical workplace to contain that.
Absolutely.
Somehow I think we're thinking that, oh, it's gonna be a lot more iterative on the digital workplace than on the physical one. Even the digital workplace is relying on actual devices. So there's also tangibility into the digital workplace that we need to account for. But yet, like the way they will marry each other, this is what is going to really empower that new movement that we call the creator movement. And in each of the individuals that you have in the tech companies, each individual is so creative. And yet I think our offices were trying to enhance that spirit, but not really offering the amenities for podcasting, for writing, for creating content, for creating like interviews like this one or being on stage. And this is actually why people will leave their home. Like at home, they can work on Zoom, they can work on documents, they can do all of these other forms of creation. That's why they will come to us.
You bring up very good points, and surprisingly, even at the exec level, from a creative movement standpoint, that will definitely help maintain that trajectory. I think you're definitely onto something as far as regardless whether these are new employees that are adept to the technology or even mature exec operations teams that are willing to take on these technologies and do it for themselves. It's going to be here.
Michael, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom and your optimism, and I'm really excited to see what Palo Alto will announce very soon.
Thank you again. Pleasure.